It is 8:14 on a Tuesday morning on the LBJ freeway in Dallas. Carlos Mendoza is in the left lane of his 11-year-old Honda Civic when a brand new lifted pickup truck, a metallic black $80,000 machine, pulls alongside him, polished chrome, catching the morning sun. 22-inch wheels gleaming, the kind of vehicle that looks like a small house on wheels. Carlos cannot help himself. He glances over. The driver is somebody who looks roughly his age, dressed in roughly his style, probably making roughly his salary. The truck merges in front of him and accelerates away. Carlos sits there in his 11-year-old Civic and asks the question that every American driver has asked at some point in the last decade. How is that person affording that truck? The answer to that question is the subject of this video. And by the end of it, you will understand exactly how and exactly why almost everyone you see driving a vehicle that costs more than a house is, financially, in the process of quietly destroying themselves. Let us start with the numbers, because they are insane. The average new car payment in America is now over $700 a month. For new pickup trucks and full-size SUVs, the average is closer to $900. And it is not uncommon. Go drive around any suburban neighborhood in America and you will see them. To find people in payments of $1,200, $1,300, $1,500 a month on a single vehicle. $1,500 a month for 7 years? That is more than $120,000 on a single car over the life of the loan. The median household income in the United States, after taxes, is somewhere around $60,000 a year, which means there are tens of millions of American households where the car payment is consuming 20, 25, sometimes 30% of every dollar that comes in the door. And none of these drivers are crypto millionaires or trust fund kids. They are sales representatives, they are teachers, they are nurses, they are middle management at small companies. Regular people with regular jobs. Somehow making the math work, or more accurately, somehow letting someone else make the math work for them, in a way that looks like working from the front seat. So let us follow one of them. His name is Carlos. Carlos has been thinking about it for a year. His company landed a major client. He just got promoted to senior sales rep. His base went up, his commission structure improved, and for the first time in his adult life, Carlos has actual money coming in that he did not expect. His Civic still runs perfectly. It has 110,000 miles on it. The transmission is smooth. The car was paid off 4 years ago. But last month, after his promotion, Carlos drove a client to lunch in his Civic and felt, for the first time in his life, a small flicker of embarrassment about it. The client was driving a new Tahoe. Carlos's company truck was a Camry. On a Saturday afternoon, Carlos walks into a generic big-name dealership on the service road off the LBJ freeway. He tells the salesman, a guy named Greg, 50s polo shirt with the dealership logo, the practiced warmth of someone who has closed 1,000 deals, that he is just looking at trucks. Greg shows him a black F-150 Lariat trim. Sticker price $58,000. Carlos says he cannot afford the payment. Greg smiles in a way that suggests he has heard this exact sentence 300 times this year. He pulls up the financing calculator on his computer. Standard 4-year loan at 6.5%? The payment is $1,400 a month. Greg says, almost casually, "What if we stretched it out?" He punches in 84 months. Same truck, same interest rate. New payment, $840 a month. Carlos can afford $840 a month. What Carlos does not see, because Greg is not pointing it out, is the new total cost number sitting in the corner of Greg's screen. Stretching the loan from 48 months to 84 months drops the monthly payment by $560. Yes, it also adds approximately $14,000 to the total amount Carlos will pay for the truck over the life of the loan. Carlos signs the paperwork 2 hours later. Now, here's what Carlos saw on the way into the dealership, but did not really process. The big banner across the showroom window said, 0% financing. Qualified buyers. 0%. Free money. Sounds incredible. Here's what nobody at the dealership explains. 0% financing is a marketing instrument, not a gift. To qualify for the true 0% rate, a buyer typically needs near-perfect credit, 800 plus FICO, and the loan term is usually capped at 36 or 48 months. The kind of buyer who qualifies for true 0% financing is, by definition, The kind of buyer who could mostly pay cash for the truck anyway. And here's the kicker, the part that most buyers never figure out. 0% financing usually comes attached to a separate offer the buyer can choose between. Either 0% financing or cashback rebate, often $3,000 to $5,000. You cannot have both, which means the so-called 0% loan is not free. Its cost is built into the vehicle price in the form of the rebate you did not take. The dealership is not giving away interest. The dealership is just letting you pick which form you want to pay it in. Carlos does not qualify for the 0% offer because his credit is good, not perfect, 760 rather than 820. So Greg writes him a loan at 6.5%, which it is. Over 7 years on a $58,000 truck, 6.5% adds roughly $12,500 in interest alone to the total cost of the vehicle. $12,500. To borrow a truck. 3 years later, Carlos's F-150 has been a great truck. He has used it for work, for weekend Home Depot runs, for one fishing trip to Lake Texoma. Carlos and Elena now have a second child on the way, a daughter, due in spring. The F-150 is technically a 4-door pickup, but with 2 car seats, Elena's mother coming over for childcare, and the growing logistics of a family of 4, Carlos starts noticing that an SUV would be more practical. He goes back to the same dealership. Greg is still there. Greg pulls Carlos's account up on the screen, and the picture is immediately clear. Carlos's F-150, 3 years and 4 months into its 84-month loan, has a current market trade-in value of about $32,000. The remaining balance on Carlos's loan, after 38 months of payments, is approximately $46,000. Carlos owes $14,000 more on the truck than the truck is worth. This is called negative equity, and it is the second most common condition in American car ownership after the lack of an emergency fund. Carlos cannot simply trade the truck in. He owes more than it is worth, which means breaking free of this loan today would require him to write the dealership a check for $14,000 before they will take it back. So Greg does what dealerships do at this stage of the buyer's life cycle. He rolls the negative equity into a new loan. The new SUV, a Tahoe LT, sticker price $65,000, becomes a financed amount of $79,000 once the $14,000 of negative equity from the F-150 is added to the principal. Greg stretches the new loan to 84 months at a slightly higher rate, 7.1%. The new monthly payment is $1,050. Carlos signs. Carlos has now spent 3 years and 4 months making payments on a truck he no longer owns, while taking on a new 7-year loan for a vehicle he can barely afford, with a starting balance $14,000 higher than the SUV's purchase price. The cycle is locked in. Here is what makes this entire system work. Carlos does not feel like he has done anything strange. He has done exactly what everyone he knows has done. At a backyard barbecue 6 months after the trade-in, Carlos parks his new Tahoe between his neighbor Jeff's Silverado and his cousin Roberto's Ram. The 3 trucks together represent approximately $190,000 in vehicles and approximately $2,800 in monthly payments. Nobody at the barbecue questions this. Everyone has a truck. Everyone has a payment. The conversation is about the trucks, the lift kits, the bedliners, and nobody asks the question that would feel rude to ask, which is, how is everyone here actually paying for this? The truth is, most of them are paying for it the same way Carlos is. By stretching loans, by rolling negative equity, by quietly going into deeper debt to maintain a vehicle that has become socially mandatory. 20 years ago, a household with a $400 car payment was considered to be living somewhat above its means. Today, a household with a $400 payment is considered to be on the low end. The industry has not just sold America bigger trucks, it has redefined what a normal payment looks like, what a normal vehicle looks like, and what a normal level of car-related debt looks like. All of it shifted upward, all of it carrying interest. Now the payment is just the beginning. The numbers Carlos is not running, because nobody at the dealership runs them with him, are what actually owns him. First, the insurance. Carlos's auto insurance on the Civic was $90 a month. On the F-150, it was $180. On the new Tahoe, with full coverage including gap insurance for the negative equity rolled into the loan, it is $280 a month. Second, the fuel. The Tahoe gets about 16 miles per gallon in real-world Texas driving conditions. Carlos commutes 36 miles round trip every weekday, plus the weekend running around the family does. His monthly fuel bill is approximately $400. Third, and this is the one nobody plans for, maintenance. In year 4 of his Tahoe's life, a small warning light comes on. The transmission. The dealership service department quotes him $5,800 for the repair. The vehicle is out of factory warranty by 60,000 miles. Carlos cannot afford $5,800 in cash. He puts it on his credit card at 24%. Add it up. The Tahoe's loan payment is $1,050 a month. Insurance, $280. Fuel, $400. Maintenance amortized over the 7-year ownership, conservatively, another $200 a month. That is $1,930 per month in transportation cost. Almost $2,000 a month. Every single month. For 7 years? For one vehicle. So let us run the real number. Carlos's 7-year Tahoe loan at $1,050 a month totals approximately $88,200. Insurance over those 7 years at $280 a month is $23,500. Fuel at $400 a month is $33,600. Maintenance and repairs, conservatively, another $15,000. Total cost of ownership for one vehicle over 7 years, approximately $160,000. And at the end of those 7 years, when Carlos has finally paid the last installment and the Tahoe is finally truly his, the vehicle itself is worth maybe $12,000 to $15,000 on the used market. He has spent $160,000 to own, at the end of the process, a $15,000 vehicle. That is not transportation. That is wealth destruction with leather seats and a third row. Now for the part that genuinely hurts to think about. What if Carlos had not bought the F-150 at all? What if, 7 years ago, Carlos had kept the Civic and instead taken the same $1,050 a month he would have spent on the Tahoe payment and put it into a basic low-cost index fund earning roughly 8% annually, the long-term historical return of the S&P 500. Over 7 years, with monthly contributions of $1,050 compounding at 8%, Carlos would have accumulated approximately $120,000 in investments, not income. Investments. Money that would, from that point forward, generate its own returns for the rest of Carlos's life. The opportunity cost of Carlos's vehicle choices over those 7 years was not the $160,000 he spent. It was the additional $120,000 he could have built. Combined, $280,000 of lifetime wealth. Gone. Not stolen. Not lost in a market crash, voluntarily exchanged for a vehicle that at the end of 7 years was worth $15,000. Carlos did not see this trade. The dealership did not explain this trade. Nobody at any point in the 7 years stood between Carlos and the paperwork and said the words, "You are giving up $250,000 of future wealth in exchange for this truck." And so Carlos signed. Now you might be thinking, why on earth would Carlos sign for the truck if these were the numbers? And the answer is the part of this video that the dealerships, the manufacturers, the lenders, and the entire automotive marketing apparatus would prefer you never think too hard about. Carlos did not buy a truck. Carlos bought a version of himself. The marketing of large vehicles in America for the last 40 years has not been about transportation. It has been about identity. The truck commercial on Sunday afternoon does not show you the truck. It shows you who you become when you own the truck. A man who builds things. A father who protects his family. A worker whose value is visible. The pickup truck is the most heavily emotionally coded purchase the average American will ever make, and the people selling it have known that since the 1980s. Once Carlos owned the F-150, then the Tahoe, those vehicles were not transportation. They were a public statement about who he had become. To his neighbors, his family, his clients, and to himself. Suggesting Carlos drive a reliable used Civic instead would not feel to Carlos like financial advice. It would feel like an attack on his self-image. The trap is not just financial, it is identity deep, and it is what keeps the system running. The dealership does not have to manipulate Carlos. By the time Carlos walks onto the lot, the manipulation has already been done. He just signs the paperwork. Year 6 of the Tahoe loan. Carlos's company has a rough quarter. His commission structure changes, his monthly take-home drops by about 15%. For the first 3 months, Carlos manages. He draws down the small emergency fund Elena had quietly built. He runs the credit cards a little hotter. He tells himself it is temporary. In month 4, he misses a payment on the Tahoe. The first time he has ever missed an auto payment in his life. He calls the lender, makes arrangements, pays the late fee. In month 5, he misses again. By month 6, he is 60 days past due, and the lender's collections department is no longer interested in arrangements. On a Tuesday morning at 5:47 a.m., a tow truck pulls into Carlos's driveway. Elena, in her bathrobe, holding a mug of coffee, watches from the front step as a stranger in a high-visibility vest hooks the Tahoe to the back of the tow truck and drives away with it. Carlos stands inside the front window in his sweatpants and a hoodie. He does not come outside. Mateo, now 9, watches from the doorway of his bedroom. The Tahoe is gone in under 12 minutes. Carlos still owes approximately $38,000 on a vehicle he no longer possesses, which the lender will sell at auction for approximately $22,000. The deficiency, $16,000, will be Carlos's responsibility to pay regardless. His credit score, which had been 760 at the start of the story, is now 520. He cannot finance another vehicle for at least 2 years. The trap closed. Somewhere on the other side of Dallas, a different neighborhood, a different driveway, a different Saturday morning, there is a man washing his car. His car is a 2014 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it. He bought it used 3 years ago for $9,000 in cash. He has never had a car payment. He has never had auto loan interest. His insurance is $110 a month. The car is paid off, runs perfectly, and gets him to work and back 5 days a week without complaint. The man in this driveway is not famous. He is not in any commercial. Nobody at a barbecue has ever asked him about his car. His neighbors do not envy him on the highway. He does not look successful in the way the trucks look successful. But over the 7 years that Carlos was paying off the Tahoe and watching the tow truck drive away with it, this man, quietly, in his unspectacular driveway, in his unremarkable car, built $120,000 in investments by putting the difference into an index fund every month. The mystery of how people are affording these astronomical car payments is not really a mystery. The truth is, they are not affording them. They are kicking the can down a road that ends, for many of them, in a driveway at 5:47 a.m. watching a stranger drive their vehicle away. And the person nobody envies, the one with the reliable used car they paid for in cash, the one washing it himself on a Saturday morning because he genuinely enjoys it, is the one quietly winning. This story is composite. The mechanics, extended loan terms, the 0% APR trade-off, negative equity rollovers, the hidden cost stack, and the opportunity cost math are real and current as of 2024 and 2025. Subscribe for one new money story every week. The systems nobody explains, explained. Next time you see that $80,000 truck on the highway, you'll know exactly what you're looking at.